I'm an old man now. The doctors tell me I'm doing pretty good for my age, which I think is their way of saying, you're still breathing and you remember where you left your pants. My hair's gone white, what's left of it. That old shrapnel track in my left thigh aches when the weather turns, just like they promised. Some mornings, it takes me a few extra seconds to remember which knee creaks and which one just complains. Most days I sit on a different porch now, the front steps of the little house my wife and I bought after the war, the place we raised our kids in. The mill's closed, the town's changed. Half the stores I grew up with are gone, replaced by things with names I can't pronounce, selling things I don't understand. The one constant is the sky. Same big Midwestern sky, changing with the seasons. Same way the light looks in late afternoon, slanting in over the roofs. Same sound of a radio drifting from somebody's open window down the block. The other constant, whether I like it or not, is the war. Not all the time, not like it was in those first years back, when I'd wake up sweating. Sure, I could hear the surf at Omaha slapping against steel, or feel the snow of the Ardennes numbing my fingers. But it's there, like an old scar you forget about, until you bump it against something. Sometimes it sneaks up on me. A car backfires and for half a heartbeat, my shoulders tense like I'm waiting for incoming. A winter wind rattles the branches against the house just right, and I'm back under those shivering trees in Belgium, counting the seconds between flares. Other times it comes because someone asks, "Grandpa, will you talk to my class?" That's how this story started, the way I'm telling it now. My youngest granddaughter, 12 going on 30, stood in my living room, school book in her hands, eyes bright. "We're doing World War II, she said. "Ms. Carter says if we know any veterans, we can bring Em in to talk. Would you, tell them about it?" I looked at her for a long moment. For years, I dodged that kind of thing. VFW meetings, sure. Swapping lies with other old guys over bad coffee, fine. But go into a classroom full of kids and try to make sense of what we'd done, what we'd seen. That felt harder. "They really want to hear an old man ramble?" I asked. She rolled her eyes like only a 12-year-old can. "They want to hear someone who was actually there," she said, "not just the guy on the video or the textbook, please." "Your friends really care about the war," I said. She hesitated. That hesitation told me more than any speech. "Some of them do," she said. "Some of them will pretend not to, cause, middle school. But Ms. Carter said, she said it's important, that pretty soon there won't be many people left who were there." She looked at me like I was some kind of artifact, a fragile thing that needed to be handled carefully. I thought about the men whose names were carved on that church wall in England, about Henry, whose grave I'd never seen in person, all the way over in Hawaii, about Sam, who'd gone into the channel just off Omaha and never come back up. I thought about Eddie, somewhere in Brooklyn, probably yelling at a TV about the Yankees, his own grandkids rolling their eyes in the background. "All right," I said, "I'll talk." The day I went into that classroom, the kids tried to look bored. They slouched in their plastic chairs, passing notes, smothering giggles, all elbows and sneakers and two big hoodies. A few of them had that half-curious look you get when you're not sure if something going to be lame or not. Ms. Carter, the teacher, looked even younger than some of them. She shook my hand like it meant something. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Hayes," she said. "We really appreciate it." I nodded, adjusted my glasses, and leaned a little heavier on my cane. "Call me Danny," I said. "Seems only fair, since I'll be telling you what I was like when I didn't know any better." A couple of kids snickered at that. It broke the ice. "Okay," Ms. Carter said, clapping her hands to get their attention. "Settle down. This is my grandfather's friend, Danny Hayes. He served in the U.S. Army in Europe in World War II. He landed at Normandy." That got their attention. Heads turned. A couple of kids straightened up without realizing they were doing it. I cleared my throat. "The first thing I remember," I said, "is the sound." And I told them. Not everything, you can't tell everything in an hour or a day or a lifetime, not without drowning in it, but I gave them the shape of it. The kid from Ohio who signed up because of a missing cousin and a feeling in his gut. The boat, the beach, the hedgerows, the snow, the friends, the noise. I tried to keep it honest. I didn't clean it up, but I didn't wallow in it either. They were quiet, quieter than I'd expected. Even the kid in the back with the dyed hair and the earbuds half in was listening, his fingers still on his phone. When I got to the part about Eddie grabbing that grenade, the one that should have ended both of us if he'd been a fraction of a second slower, a girl in the front row gasped out loud. When I talked about coming home, about seeing Halloween decorations on the same porches I'd left from, feeling like I'd stepped sideways into a slightly different world, a boy near the window frowned, like he'd never considered that part. After I finished, there was a moment where nobody said anything. Then the questions came. "Were you scared?" one boy blurted out. "Yes," I said, "every day. Anyone who tells you they weren't is either lying or too dumb to know better." "Did you hate them?" a girl asked, "like the Germans, the enemy?" I thought about that. "I hated what they were fighting for," I said slowly. "I hated what they did. The camps, the killing, all of it, but the ones shooting at me, most of them were just kids like I was, scared, doing what they'd been told was their duty. I didn't think much about hating them when I was there. I was too busy trying not to die. Later, though," I shrugged. "Later, I started feeling sorry for some of them, same as I did for us." "Did you kill anybody?" one boy asked, then immediately looked like he wished he could stuff the words back in his mouth. A few kids tensed, glancing at Ms. Carter like he'd broken some unspoken rule. "I didn't let her rescue him." "Yes," I said quietly, "I did." The room seemed to get smaller. How does that feel?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Bad," I said. "If you have any kind of heart, it feels bad, even when you know you didn't have a choice. Even when you know if you hadn't, your buddy next to you would be the one not going home. It sits with you for a long time." They sat with that. "Would you do it again?" another girl asked, "if you had to?" It was a hell of a question for a 12-year-old. "If you mean would I go fight Nazis again, knowing what I know now," I said. "Yeah, I would. I don't say that because I liked it, or because I got a kick out of being a hero, or any of that nonsense. I say it because some things need to be stood up to. You can't let people like that run the world." I looked around the room at all those young faces. "But I'd hope," I added, "that we'd be smart enough next time to see the storm coming sooner, to stop it before it's a full-blown war. That's your job more than mine now." When it was over, they clapped, awkward, scattered at first, then stronger. A couple of them came up afterward. One girl, shy, hair in her face, held out a little folded piece of paper. "I drew this while you were talking," she mumbled. For you." Inside was a pencil sketch. Crude, sure, but you could see what it was, two stick-figure guys in helmets, one helping the other limp away from an explosion. Above them, in looping middle school script, she'd written, "Thank you. It's on my fridge now." Ms. Carter walked me out to the parking lot. "Thank you," she said again. They needed to hear that from someone real. "I'm just one guy," I said. "Plenty of stories like mine, plenty worse." She looked at me, head tilted. "Do you ever wish you hadn't gone?" she asked. "That you stayed home?" "Sometimes." The word surfaced in my mind, immediate and honest. Sometimes, when I see the look in my wife's eyes when a car backfires and I flinch. Sometimes, when I wake up in the dark with my heart pounding and the taste of sand or snow in my mouth. Sometimes, when I think about the boys who didn't get old, who never had a chance to sit on a porch and tell stories. But wishing doesn't change the past. "I wish the world had been such that I didn't need to go," I said instead. "I don't regret that I did." On the drive home, my granddaughter chattered in the passenger seat, filling in the silences I didn't have words for. "They really liked you," she said. "Even Tyler, and he never likes anything. He said you were hardcore." "Is that good?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, nodding solemnly. "That's good." She was quiet for a second. "Were you telling it like all of it?" she asked. "Or did you leave stuff out?" "A little of both," I said. She nodded like she understood, which maybe she did more than I gave her credit for. At a red light, she turned to look at me. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Talking about it now, I mean." I looked at her, this kid who'd never known a world without the internet, without phones that fit in your pocket, without the idea of war being a thing on a screen far away. "I'm okay," I said, and after a second, better than I was when I kept it all in. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I went out onto the porch. The air was cool, crickets chirped. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked twice and then stopped. I sat in my old chair, the one with the groove worn by 100 tired evenings, and looked up at the stars. The Big Dipper, Orion, constellations I'd seen from foxholes and ship decks and foreign fields. I thought about that kid on the boat off Omaha, listening to another boy pray. I thought about the old man in the English church, telling me to do my job and come home. I thought about Henry in Hawaii, under a headstone I'd never touched, and Sam in the cold gray water, and Jimmy on that bloody sand, and Collins in that farmhouse, and all the others whose names come to me now like half-remembered songs. And I thought about Eddie, loud, stubborn, impossible Eddie, raising a glass over a greasy pizzeria table and saying, "We're even." He called a couple of times a year, right up until his voice got thin and breathless, and he said the doctors had found a little something in his lungs. "Damn Krauts couldn't kill me," he wheezed, trying to laugh. "Guess it's up to my own body to finish the job." He went in his sleep, his son told me later, peacefully at home, after all the ways we'd imagined it might end for us, under tanks or shells or snow that felt right, mercy maybe. At his funeral, in a crowded Brooklyn church that smelled of incense and onions and old wood, his ma hugged me the same way she had the first time I'd come to her door. "He talked about you," she said into my chest, "all the time, Danny this, Danny that, like you were brothers." "We were," I said. She nodded, eyes shining. "Then you sit by me," she said firmly. "Family. Years from now, someone will say World War II, and there won't be anyone left in the room who can say, I was there. There'll be books, movies, grainy footage of boys running up a beach that doesn't look as deadly in black and white as it felt in color. There'll be speeches at monuments and wreaths laid and flags folded. And there'll be kids in classrooms, opening textbooks to chapters with titles like The Greatest Generation, seeing dates and names and neat little arrows on maps. If they're lucky, someone will sit them down and say, it was messier than that, harder, uglier, better. It was a million scared kids trying to do the right thing one small, terrible step at a time. If I have anything I want to leave behind, it's this. War is not about heroes and villains on a screen. It's about Sam from Texas and Jimmy from Iowa and Eddie from Brooklyn and Henry from Honolulu, and a whole lot of boys whose names you'll never know. It's about standing up when you're shaking. It's about going forward when backward feels safer. It's about dragging your friend off the beach because you can't stand the idea of your mother getting a letter with his name on it and thinking, my boy died alone. And if you're lucky, God, if you're lucky, it's about coming home. About sitting on a porch years later, listening to your granddaughter breathe softly in the next room, and knowing that, for all the noise and fire and blood, for all the bad dreams and scars and empty chairs at the table, what you did helped make that quiet possible. My name is Daniel Hayes. I was an infantryman once, a long time ago, on beaches and fields and in dark, frozen woods. I was scared. I went anyway. And the world kept turning. We turned toward Germany. The channel slid away behind us, a gray sheet fatting into haze. Ahead, the continent, a big, ugly chunk of land full of people who'd spend the next few hours trying hard to make sure we never saw home again. From the tail, I had the best and worst view in the house. If I craned my neck a little, I could see down the whole length of the fuselage, the top turret just behind the cockpit, the radio room, the waste windows, then empty air and 4 big engines chewing at the sky. Beyond us, above and below, stretched row on row of other B-17s, hanging in their boxes like some crazy 3-dimensional grid. You'd think all that metal around you would feel safe. It didn't, it just meant that when the shooting started, there were more things to hit. We crossed the Dutch coast, and there it was. Flag. At first it was just little black smudges on the horizon, like someone had flicked ink at the sky. Then we flew closer, and those smudges turned into puffs, perfect, round bursts that hung in the air for a second before smearing out. Flak 12 o'clock level, someone up front called over the intercom, voice tighter than usual, looks medium heavy. Swell, Shorty muttered from the ball turret. Let's just fly straight through it, see what happens. That was the worst part, you had to fly straight through it. Bombers in formation didn't get to jink and dodge. The whole theory of daylight bombing depended on tight groups, steady courses, precise timing. Which meant flying straight and level through stuff designed to kill you. The first burst close to us sounded like someone had taken a giant hammer to the side of the fuselage. The plane jumped, my teeth clicked together. Close one, Joe said from the top turret, a little breathless, couple 100 yards off the port wing. In the tail, my whole world was flashing lights and concussions. Each black puff meant a shell had guessed right altitude, distance, fuse time, and was now throwing red-hot steel around at supersonic speeds. You couldn't see the shards, but you could hear them when they hit, pinging and thudding into the metal like an angry hailstorm. One chunk the size of my fist punched straight through the elevator about 2 feet from my shoulder, leaving a jagged, smoking hole. Cold air knifed in, bringing with it the sharp, burnt smell of explosive. "You all right back there, Mick?" Harris called. "Yeah," I said, louder than I needed to. "We sprung a window is all." "Tell maintenance to put it on the tab," he said. That was Harris all over, calm, a little dry, like we were on a rough road instead of halfway to Bremen with people trying to saw the wings off. The flak got thicker as we went. It wasn't random, either. You could see it walking up and down the formation, the German gunners adjusting by feel, bracketing us like some horrible math problem. Every so often, you'd see a burst too close to another ship, and your stomach would drop. A wing would rock, or an engine would cough black smoke, or a whole plane would shudder like it had been punched by God. We were maybe 20 minutes from the IP, the initial point, the place where the bomb run proper started, when it happened. "Fighters," someone yelled on the group frequency. 11 o'clock high, lots of M. I twisted in my seat, pressing my helmet to the glass. They were little black crosses at first. Then they grew sleek, fast, purposeful. Messerschmitt 109s and Focke-Wulf 190s, the names we'd been hearing in lectures and training films made flesh and metal. They didn't circle us or dance around like they did in the newsreels. They just came straight in. Head on, they screamed through the leading elements of the formation, guns chewing. I could see tiny flashes on their wings and noses as they fired, tiny orange flickers that reached out in straight white lines. From the tail, they were the worst angle. They were there, and then they were gone, shooting through and diving away before I could swing my guns with any hope of leading them. "Keep your heads down," Harris barked. "Bombardier, stay on those instruments. Everyone else, eyes open." The second wave came from above and behind, my quadrant. "Bandits 6 o'clock high," I yelled, heart punching at my ribs. 3, no, 4 coming in. They dropped toward us in a shallow dive, growing. I could see one clearly now, the wide nose of a 190, the yellow band around the fuselage, the pilot's canopy glinting. My hands moved on their own. Twist the yoke, track the target, late it, don't shoot at where it is, shoot at where it's going to be. He opened up first. Streaks of white fire stitched the air between us, walking toward the tail. Something buzzed past my ear like an angry hornet. Glass crazed a spiderweb pattern in front of my face. My thumb hit the firing buttons. The whole tail shook as my .50s came to life, tracers reaching out in twin golden streams. The sound was less a stutter and more a continuous tearing roar right where my hands met the guns. I walked the line up toward his nose, just like the instructors had said. Barrel, engine, cockpit. I saw my tracers connect. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the 190 jerked hard, like somebody had yanked the stick. A puff of black smoke belched from the engine. The nose dipped. The canopy blew off and a dark shape tumbled out, arms and legs flailing for a second before a parachute snapped open, a white flower against the blue. The plane itself rolled onto its back, trailing smoke, and dropped away, spinning lazily. I realized my mouth was open. I shut it. "Good hit, tail," Joe yelled. "You got him." I swallowed hard. My hands were locked around the gun grips, fingers numb inside my gloves. I couldn't feel the switch when I let off the triggers. The metal was that cold, or my nerves were that shot, maybe both. The first time I saw a man die in that war, he didn't die. At least not that I saw. He bilayed out, his chute opened. For all I know, he landed in a field, lit a cigarette, and cursed me in German until the war ended. But what stuck in my brain wasn't him falling away. It was that half second when I saw my tracers walk into his cockpit and the plane flinch. That knowledge I did that. I put steel through another man's world. "Stay sharp," Harris snapped. "More coming." There wasn't time to think about it, not then. They hit us again and again. From the sides from below, screaming up through the formation, dumping cannon shells and rounds into anything they could line up. We fired back, all of us, our own tracers crisscrossing the sky like someone had taken a box of neon pencils to it. Ships around us took hits. I saw one ahead and to the right catch a burst in number 3 engine. The cowling blew off in a puff of flame, the prop windmilling to a stop. The plane sagged out of formation, wobbling. "Come on, buddy," I whispered, as if the pilot could hear me across that horrible empty air. "Come on, get it back." For a second, it looked like he might. Then a flak burst went off under his left wing. It didn't look real. 1 second there was a wing, the next there was just smoke and bits and a horrible lurching motion as the fortress rolled over and went into a spin. The tail ripped off, men, tiny from where I was, tumbled out, spinning shapes against the sky. I counted them without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. A fourth shape fell, arms wide, and didn't open his chute. That was the first time I saw a man die, really die, and know it. He fell past us, getting smaller and smaller, until he was just another dark fleck against cloud, and then nothing at all. The intercom was a mess of voices. "Ship going down, 3 o'clock, Jesus." "Keep it together," Harris cut through it sharp. "We're not there yet, we're not even close. Eyes out, guns ready." The bomb run itself was like holding your head under water and hopping you remembered how to breathe. Once we hit the IP, the lead ship took over. From that point on, we flew straight and level, tight in formation, no evasive maneuvers. You didn't jiggle or jink. You held your place, you watched your intervals, you let the bombardier up front do his math. "Bomb bay doors open," our bombardier called, voice clipped. "Steady, steady." The flak over the target was insane. It wasn't puffs anymore. It was a wall, black flowers blooming at our altitude, so close I felt the plane kick with every near miss. The sky stank of burnt powder and hot metal. The whole ship rattled like it was about to come apart at the seams. "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph," someone breathed. "Steady," Harris said again, like he was talking to a nervous horse. From the tail, I saw it all lining up, the neat pattern of the formation, the angry, boiling mess over the city below. Smoke was already rising from somewhere, maybe from the Pathfinder planes that had gone in ahead, maybe from earlier raids. Little flashes marked the points where bombs from the lead elements were already hitting. "Steady, steady," the bombardier muttered, more to himself than us now. We flew into the black. Flak burst so close that the light from it strobed through the fuselage. Something slapped the tail hard enough that my teeth clicked again. A line of small holes stitched across the skin just above my head, daylight winking through in little ragged circles. "Bombs away," the bombardier shouted. The plane jumped up like it had been yanked by a rope suddenly. 48 500-pounders falling out of your belly will do that. "Bombs away, doors closing," he confirmed a moment later. "Let's get the hell out of here," Lou said. The formation banked, turning away from Bremen. We weren't safe, not even close. The fighters came back, angry hornets swarming in to pick off the stragglers and chew at the main force. The flak followed us out, the German gunners adjusting on the fly, walking it along our path. But there was a difference now. We weren't flying into it anymore. We were flying away. On the way back, the adrenaline ebbed just enough for the fear to turn into something else, a dull, exhausted ache. My hands throbbed where they clamped to the gun grips. My eyes stung from staring so long my lids had forgotten how to blink. We lost 3 ships from our squadron that day. We watched 2 go down. The third just wasn't there when we landed. We rolled onto the runway in late afternoon, the English sky low and damp again, as if it had been waiting in that gray mood the whole time, oblivious to whatever we'd been doing on the other side of the water. Ground crews waved us in, eyes scanning for holes, listening to the engines. When we shut down and climbed out, I put my hand on the side of Mick's mistress again. She was peppered with little dings. There was a jagged, lunch plate-sized hole in one wing where something big had punched through. The tail looked like someone had taken a shotgun to it, dozens of punctures, one of the control cables hanging loose like a cut nerve. But she was on the ground. We were on the ground. Back in debriefing, they gave us coffee that tasted like motor oil and made us go over everything we'd seen. Any unusual fighter tactics? How accurate was the flak? Did you see any hits on the target area? We answered as best we could, heads buzzing, words tumbling out in jerks. They wrote it all down, nodded, said, "Thank you, Sergeant," and sent us to the mess hall like it was any other day at work. That night, lying in my bunk in the Nissen hut, I stared up at the curved metal ceiling and saw that man falling past us again. Arms wide, no shoot. I thought about his mother. Did he have one still alive? Did she get a letter that said missing in action over the North Sea, or did they not even know who he was well enough to write it? You awake, Mick, a voice whispered from the bunk across the aisle. Yeah, I said. Frankie's face was a pale blur in the dark. You did good today, he said quietly. I saw that 190 you nailed. Yeah, I said. He was silent for a beat. How's that feel, he asked, your first one? I thought about lying, about saying something easy, something movie brave. Instead, I said, cold. He snorted softly. Yeah, he said, sounds about right. We flew again 3 days later. And 3 days after that. There's a rhythm you fall into in that kind of war. Briefing at some ungodly hour, the copper taste of nerves in your mouth as they pull the curtain back on the map, suiting up, piling into the truck, climbing into your plane in the dark, the engines coughing and then catching one by one. You learn the little superstitions of survival. Jenkins always tapped the side of the fuselage twice before climbing in. Harris wore the same ragged scarf on every mission, no matter how much it stank. Shorty spit over his shoulder before they closed the ball turret hatch. You learn not to get too attached to the new guys. Crews came in all shiny and green, their planes spotless, their eyes too wide. They'd swagger in the mess, talk loud about showing the Krauts what for. 2 weeks later, their ship would come in on 3 engines, trailing smoke, or it wouldn't come in at all. We started marking our missions under the nose art, little yellow bombs, one for each trip we made across the channel and back. The first row went by faster than I expected. 6 bombs, 8, 10. You didn't get a drink for 10, or a medal, or anything official, but the ground crew nodded at you a little differently. Old hands now, one of them said as he helped me drag a fresh crate of ammo to the tail one morning. Just keep your luck going, eh? Luck. We didn't say that word much out loud. We said skill, discipline, good maintenance. But when you watched a ship ahead of you take a flak hit that should have killed it, and instead punch through the burst-trailing smoke, and then you saw another get clipped on the wingtip and just fold up like paper, you knew there was a third thing in the mix. Schweinfurt was where I stopped believing I'd finish my tour. They told us it was a vital target, ball-bearing plants. Take those out and you gummed up the whole German war machine. Tanks, trucks, planes, they all ran on bearings. Heavy flak, deep penetration, fighters all the way in and all the way out. High losses are expected, the colonel said at the briefing, in the same tone you might say chance of rain. We went anyway. From the minute we crossed into Germany proper, it felt like the whole Luftwaffe was up there waiting. 109s and 190s, sure, but also twin-engine jobbers, 110s, 210s, with rockets slung under their wings. They'd sit out just beyond what we could comfortably hit and lob those damn things right into the formation. You could see the rocket exhausts coming, thin, pale trails curling through the air, then the bursts as they went off. Not like flak, not neat little puffs. These were more random, bits of ships and sky disappearing in the same breath. We lost a fortress 2 planes over from us when a rocket went straight into the bomb bay. 1 second there was a ship. The next there was a bright white flash and a cloud expanding outwards that had pieces in it. Wings, an engine tumbling, something that might have been a man, might have been a piece of spar, flung who knows how far. What was Jesus Christ? Joe said, words dropping out as he realized what he was seeing. Nobody said anything for a while after that. There wasn't much to say. Over the target, the flak was so thick you could almost believe the old joke about stepping out and walking on it. Something big hit us just as we dropped our load. The whole tail jumped sideways. I slammed into the armor plate, knocking the breath out of me. Warning lights flicked on up front. One engine started running rough. Talk to me, Mick, Harris snapped. You still with us back there? I'm here, I wheezed, sucking air in through my mask, but I think someone just kicked us in the ass. Rudder controls are sluggish, Lou said. Feels like we lost some surface. Do what you can, Harris said. We're not breaking off alone. We stay with the group. On the way out, I saw something I still dream about sometimes. One of our guys took a hit in the nose, not the plexiglass. Those had been shattered on half the ships already, but something inside. The bombardier's compartment exploded outward in a cone of debris and fire. For the briefest instant, I saw the man inside, framed by smoke, his body arched back, hands flung wide. Then he was gone. You don't process it right then. You can't, you're busy, hands on the guns, eyes on your quadrant, calling out bandits, slapping fresh belts into place. Later in the dark, it lands. We limped home from Schweinfurt on 3 engines, the damaged rudder making us crab sideways through the air like a drunk. When we touched down, our gear almost collapsed from the way we came in. The left tire blew. We skidded, showering sparks, the world outside tilting. Hold her, hold her, hold her, Lou chanted under his breath like a prayer. Somehow Harris did. We came to a stop half off the runway, the left wingtip drooping toward the grass like a tired arm. They pried us out one by one, medics looking us over like we were used cars someone was thinking of buying. No obvious holes, one said, thumping my chest. You're good, Sergeant, how's that leg? Still attached, I mumbled. That night the chaplain held a service in the big Quonset hut they used as a rec room. It was packed, not because we'd all suddenly found religion, but because there were so many faces missing from supper. He read some verses, said some things about sacrifice and duty and the Lord being our shepherd. It all washed over me like rain on a tin roof. At the end he said, and remember, gentlemen, those who have fallen today have not died in vain. Every mission, every bomb on target, brings us closer to the day when no more young men will have to go where you go. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. Part of me just saw that other crews' nose blowing out again and thought, they're not thinking about victory, they're just gone. We got a 3-day stand down after that. Maintenance needed time to patch up what was left of the group. We needed time to figure out how to go back out there. You don't talk about quitting. You think about it. Staring at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, listening to somebody snore 3 bunks over, you think, maybe I just accidentally twist my knee coming down the ladder. Maybe I cough a little harder at sick call and let the doc hear the rattle, just long enough to make my tour someone else's problem. Then you think about the guys still out there, the new crews who haven't been chewed up yet. Harris, who'll still fly whether you're in the tail or not. Shorty, wise cracking his way into the ball turret in the morning cold. And you know, as surely as you know anything, that you're going back. So you do. Mission 12, Mission 15. Some felt like milk runs, short hops to hit submarine pens along the coast, flak light, fighters busy elsewhere. Others felt like trying to walk across a freeway blindfolded. You start measuring time not in months, but in chalk marks on the nose. 17 little bombs painted under Mick's mistress, then 20. 5 more, Frankie said one night, staring at the row of yellow stencils as if he could will new ones into being. Just 5 more. That's if they don't move the goalposts, Shorty muttered. Here they're thinking about upping the tour to 30 missions. They do that, Joe said, and I'm transferring to the Navy. Let the Krauts try and shoot me out of a battleship instead. We laughed, we always laughed. It was either that or think too hard, and thinking too hard at that stage of the game was dangerous. Mission 21 was the one that took Shorty. It wasn't even a big, important target, just marshalling yards somewhere in France, softening things up for the ground boys who'd be coming through in a few months. Light flak, they said, limited fighter opposition. We got jumped on the way in by a swarm of 190s who clearly hadn't read the briefing. They came in low and fast from the side, then split us up under the formation, raking us from belly to spine on the way through. Bandits 6 o'clock low, I yelled. Shorty, you got M. I see M, he snapped back. Quit breathing in my ear. His guns chattered, the ball turret swiveling like a mad thing as he tracked their climb. Tracers laced up. One of the 190s wobbled, coughed smoke, and dropped off. Scratch one, Shorty crowed. Who's buying me a drink tonight? I saw the other 2 curve up and away, disappear into the clutter above. We all exhaled. Nice shooting, Harris said. Keep your eyes peeled, boys, they might try. He never finished the sentence. There was a sound like someone had taken a giant can opener to the underside of the plane. The mistress lurched. My stomach did a horrible, weightless flip. Hit, we're hit, Lou shouted. Number 2 engines losing power. Oil pressure dropping, Jenkins chimed in. Fuel feed. Above all of it, a sound cut through the intercom I'd never heard before. Shorty screaming. I'm hit, oh God. Something hot sprayed my face. For a second I thought it was oil. Then I realized it was coming from above, running down the inside skin of the tail like someone had spilled a bucket. Blood. Shorty, I yelled. Shorty, talk to me. Nothing. Ball turret report, Harris snapped. Shorty, you with us? Silence. Frankie, Sal, can you get to him? Harris barked. I'm on it, Frankie said. I saw him through the tail's little door, unstrapping, moving forward like a drunk man in the turbulence, grabbing handholds, fighting the slipstream. The ball turret was in its stowed position, guns pointed straight back for landing and emergencies. Right now, it was somewhere off neutral, twisted to one side. Frankie got to the hatch, grabbed the handle, and yanked. Nothing. Damn thing's jammed, he shouted. Shorty, can you move it? Can you rotate? No answer. Hydraulics are out, Lou said from up front, voice clipped. He was working the problem in real time, you could tell. We lost the line when that last burst hit. That turret's dead weight now. We gotta crank it manually, Frankie said. Get him lined up so we can pull him out. Do it, Harris ordered. We're not leaving him down there. We were still under attack. Fighters were making passes. Flak was probing. Harry's was wrestling a wounded fortress. But right then, for the 10 men inside that ship, the universe shrank down to the little steel marble hanging under our feet. I twisted in my seat, trying to see. Frankie grabbed the emergency crank, a little metal rod connected through gears to the turret. He started turning. Jesus, he grunted, it's stuck on something. Sal, give me a hand. Between the two of them, red-faced, veins standing out on their necks, they got it moving, slowly, inch by stubborn inch. Careful, Lou called back. We got damage down there. You force it too hard, you'll shear the mount. Then we really can't get him out, Frankie panted. Pick your poison, Lieutenant. They got it to center line. Try the hatch now, I yelled, as if volume could help. Frankie spun the dog handle again. This time it gave, grudgingly. He hauled the hatch open. The smell hit first. Copper and oil and something else, burnt cloth, all mixed together in the slipstream. For a second, he just stared. Then he swore, a long, hard string of words that wouldn't have passed any censor. Is he alive? Harris demanded. Frankie didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was hoarse. I don't know, he said. He's, oh, Jesus, Shorty. Can you get him out? Harris snapped. Frankie swallowed so loud I heard it. I'll try. He reached down into the turret, bracing himself, and pulled. Shorty came up in pieces. The fighter's rounds had come up through the floor, through the ball itself. There wasn't much left below his ribs. Frankie got his arms under his shoulders and hauled, grunting, his boots scrabbling for purchase on the bloody metal. For a moment I thought maybe he's. Then Shorty's head rolled limply to the side, his eyes open and empty, mouth slack. My own stomach lurched. I didn't throw up. I don't know why. There didn't seem to be anything in me to come up. Is he? Harris started. He's gone, Frankie said flatly. There was a pause on the intercom, not long, half a second. Then Harris said very quietly, God rest his soul, get clear of that hatch, boys. We've still got to bring this thing home. The rest of the mission went on. Fighters still came, flak still bloomed. We still had to keep our eyes open, our guns loaded, our heads such as they were working. 3 feet from my boots, the turret hung open. Blood swung in little frozen arcs where it had been flung onto the metal, already starting to crust in the cold air. We landed silent. No whoops, no we made it, no clapping the tail and thanking the mistress. We just climbed out, one by one, and stood there on the hardstand, looking at the black hole that used to be Shorty's office. They brought a blanket. Frankie helped them lift what was left of him into it. His hands shook. Blood had dried under his fingernails in dark crescents. The chaplain was waiting when we got back from debriefing. He took off his cap, said some words. I didn't register them. That night, Shorty's bunk was empty. His extra pair of boots sat neatly underneath it. His half-finished letter home was still on the little crate he used as a nightstand, the pen laid carefully across the top. Dear Ma, it said, don't worry about me. Harris sat on the edge of that bunk for a long time, the letter in his big hands. We can't leave this here, he said finally. He finished it for him, not with lies exactly, but with what he thought Shorty would have said if he'd had 10 more minutes. Then he sealed it, addressed it, and handed it to the mail clerk the next morning. We flew again 2 days later. The ball turret was occupied by a quiet kid from Ohio whose name I couldn't remember 3 missions later. He did his job. He kept us alive. He never really became one of us, not the way Shorty had. It wasn't his fault. By mission 25, I was running on fumes. Not just physically, though my joints ached from the cold and the cramped positions, and the little nagging cough that all of us had from breathing that canned oxygen never really went away. I mean inside. The official rule was still 25 missions for a tour, at least on paper. Rumors said they were thinking about bumping it up. There was talk the brass might make it 30 or even 35 before rotating crews home, especially now that we had more ships and more fighters. Longer tour mean fewer green crews, the operations officer said once. More experience stays in theater. He wasn't wrong. I didn't care. 25 had become a finish line in my head. Every mission after that felt like running past a tape someone had already taken down. We hit it one gray morning over Germany, dropping sticks of bombs on an oil refinery. It should have felt momentous. It didn't. It felt like any other mission. Hell on the way in, hell on the way out, then the sweet, sudden relief of seeing the English coast again under a blanket of cloud. We landed, we taxied in. Ground crew waved, someone gave us a half-hearted thumbs up. Back at the hardstand, Joe hopped down from the top turret and slapped the side of the plane. 25, he said, tour complete. Depends who you ask, Jenkins muttered, lighting a cigarette with shaky hands. We walked to debriefing together, Harris, Lou, me, the rest, 10 shadows in bulky jackets. The colonel was waiting. As of this morning, he said, Higher Command has officially extended tour. My stomach dropped. For crews beginning their combat rotation now, the number is 30 missions, he went on. However, he paused there, letting us dangle for a second. Crews who have already completed 25 will be given the option, he said. You can rotate home now, or you can volunteer to stay on. Volunteer. It wasn't even a question, really. We knew what he meant. They needed experienced crews. They needed people who knew what it was like up there, who could help the kids just arriving not get themselves killed on their first hop. Talk it over, he said. Let me know by the end of the day. We sat in the mess hall afterward, coffee going cold in front of us. Home, Joe said finally, staring at his mug. Chicago, steak that isn't boiled, beer that doesn't taste like rainwater, a bed that doesn't move. California, Lou said. Palm trees, my own car, not hearing bandits 12 o'clock every time someone drops a tray. My own home rose up in my mind like a Polaroid someone had waved under a light. Our narrow kitchen, my mother's linoleum, the chipped mug my father drank his coffee from. Home, I said. We sat with that for a second. Then Harris spoke. I'm staying, he said quietly, at least for a few more. They're bringing in a batch of replacements next week. They're gonna need somebody in the lead elements who's actually seen what Jerry can do, someone who won't panic when it hits the fan. He looked up at us, apologetic and stubborn all at once. I can't ask you boys to make that call with me, he said. You've done your 25, you've more than earned your boat ticket. He meant it. He was also wrong. You think we're gonna let you go up there with a fresh crew and some snot-nosed kid in the tail? I snorted. Not a chance, Lieutenant. Yeah, Joe said, we've come this far without getting you killed. Might as well see the job through. Besides, Jenkins added, if we go home now and you catch one on your very next hop, I gotta live with that for the rest of my life. Don't put that on me. Harris stared at us for a second. This isn't a movie, fellas, he said. Nobody's going to write this up in a nice, tidy story. You stay, you might not make it. You understand that? We did. We stayed anyway. For 3 more missions. That's all it took. On the 3rd one, we didn't make it home. Berlin. They'd hit it before, of course, but this was part of the big push, heavy raids, day after day, pounding the capital until even Goebbels couldn't spin it. Show the Russians were pulling our weight, someone muttered in the briefing. We went. You get tired of hearing me say the flak was bad, but there's no other way to put it. Over Berlin, the flak was biblical. Black bursts stacked from 10,000 feet up to 30 like some demented wedding cake. They knew our preferred altitudes. They knew our usual routes. They had full batteries aimed and waiting. We went in at 25,000 anyway, because that's what the plan called for. They hit us hard on the bomb run. A shell burst so close off our right wing that the whole plane lurched. The filling cabinet in the radio room came loose, flung its contents all over. The ball turret stopped moving, jammed at a weird angle. "Ball turret, report," Harris shouted. "I'm okay," the new kid yelped. "Turret's stuck, but I'm okay." "Count your blessings," Frankie muttered. We dropped our load, turned off the target, and that's when things went from bad to worse. A 190 came screaming in from high astern, straight down our lane. I saw him late, too late. "Bandit 6 high," I yelled, swinging my guns. He fired. I fired. Our tracers met in the air like two angry, glowing ropes. I saw rounds walk up into his nose, and his rounds walk straight into our number 4 engine. The world went white for a second. There was a roar, a whoomp, and then the howl of wind where metal should have been. "I've lost 4, Lou shouted. "Fire, fire on the right." "Feather it," Harris snapped. "Hit the extinguisher." Already, she's not responding. "Number 3's losing power," Jenkins cut in. We're pouring fuel. We've got a leak, Lieutenant." The fortress shuddered. We dropped altitude like an elevator, with the cables cut for a solid 1,000 feet before Harris could get her nose back up. "Bombs away, we're hit," he kept saying into the mic, "half for us, half for the rest of the group. We can't stay in formation." We slid out of the box, the other ships grinding past us, holding their lanes. In that second, we went from being part of a big, angry machine to being a single, wounded bird flapping on its own. "Fighters 3 o'clock, Joe yelled. "They see us, Lieutenant, they're coming." I pressed my back harder against the armor plate, hands on the guns, every nerve on fire. "Radio call Mayday," Harris barked. "See if we can get a fix. Navigator, give me a heading for home that keeps us out of the worst of it." We fought our way back. I don't have pretty words for it. It was messy, half-remembered. Fighters made passes at us like wolves harrying a wounded elk, darting in to take chunks when they could. We threw everything we had at them. I'm pretty sure I hit one. I'm also pretty sure at least 2 hit us. Flak followed us longer than it should have. We were lower now, in range of smaller guns. You could see the flashes from the fields below, tiny angry pops. "Navigator, where are we?" Harris shouted. "West of target," the nav answered, his voice weirdly calm. "Still deep in Germany. If we hold this heading, we hit Holland in 40 minutes. England longer." "We don't have longer," Lou said through gritted teeth. "Fuel gauges are dropping, Lieutenant. We're bleeding." "Tell the crew," Harris said. "Prepare to bail out." The word hit like a physical thing. You trained for it, sure. Instructors showed you how to put your chute on, how to clip in, how to count before pulling the ripcord, but nobody really believed they'd have to do it. We'd seen men tumble out of other planes. We'd watched chutes bloom. We watched some never open. Now it was our turn. "All right, boys," Harris said, his voice steady but thinner. "We're not going to make it across the water like this. We'll try to limp as close to the lines as we can. When I give the word, you go. Don't wait. Don't argue. Clear." Nobody said anything. "Say it," he snapped. "Clear." "Clear," I forced out. "Yes, sir." "Clear." The ship groaned around us. I looked down through my little tail window and realized, with a strange, detached clarity, that this might be the last time I saw the earth from above. It looked ordinary. Fields, little roads, clusters of houses. Somewhere down there, a German kid was chasing a ball. A woman was hanging sheets. A farmer was cursing his cows. And somewhere else, a farm boy from Ohio was hanging in a ball turret, praying the hydraulics would hold. 5 more minutes, the navigator said. "We put you closer to the front if you..." A fresh burst of flak went off just under us. The mistress lurched. Warning lights exploded across the panel up front. "Fire in 3, Lou yelled. We're done, Lieutenant. She's gonna go." Harris didn't hesitate. Bail out," he shouted. "Go, go, go." The words we'd all dreaded hearing. From the back, the escape route was through the waist. then out either the side hatch or the bomb bay if you were crazy, and it was clear. I unstrapped, hands moving faster than I'd have thought possible. My parachute felt stupidly small and light as I clipped it on. "Go," I yelled at Frankie and the others. "I'm right behind you." We stumbled forward, the plane slanting under our feet, the wind howling through a dozen holes it hadn't been born with. The waist hatch was jammed. Of course it was. "Try the other side," Frankie screamed. We turned, Sal got there first, grabbed the handle, yanked. It came open with a scream of tortured metal, cold air slamming into us. "Go," he shouted, "go." He dropped out, gone in an instant. Frankie went next, then Jenkins. I turned back once. Down the fuselage, through the smoke and the haze, I saw Harris in his seat, still strapped in, hands on the controls. Lou leaned over the panel, talking a mile a minute. We held each other's eyes for a split second. He nodded once. Then I stepped into nothing. For a heartbeat, there was weightlessness. Then the wind hit me like a truck, flipping me end over end. The sky spun, blue, white, green, black. My stomach lurched into my throat. "Count, damn you," they'd told us. 1, 2, 3. My hand found the ripcord and yanked. For a horrible second, nothing happened. Then there was a jerk so hard I thought it had snapped my spine, and the spin stopped. I was hanging in the sky. Just hanging. Below me, the earth rolled. Above me, the sky was a deep, impossible blue. My chute blossomed overhead in a big white circle. I looked around. Another chute off to my right, Frankie maybe or Sal, too far away to tell, another below me, and below that. The mistress. She was trailing smoke from both right engines now, her nose down, falling in a long, almost lazy arc. One wing looked shorter than the other. Flames licked along the underside. I watched her go the whole way down. You get stupid thoughts in those moments. I remember thinking, I hope she doesn't hit a farmhouse. I hope she goes into a field. Stupid things like that. She hit in a forest, finally, the treetops swallowing her. A moment later, a dirty orange fireball boiled up. I didn't see anyone come out after me. The ground rushed up. I hit harder than I'd expected. Training tells you how to land, a parachute landing fall, rolling, taking the impact along your body. I remembered some of it, maybe not enough. My ankle twisted with a sickening crunch. My teeth slammed together. Then I was lying on my back in a field somewhere in Germany, chute collapsing over me like a deflated tent. For a second, there was nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then the world leaked back in distant guns, shouts, the flap of canvas as my chute tugged in the wind. I fumbled for my knife, sliced away the lines, got free of the silk. "Frankie," I yelled, stupid, before my brain caught up with my mouth. "Sal, anybody." No answer, just the wind in the grass. I tried to stand. White-hot pain shot up my leg. I went down again, hissing. Well, I thought, so this is how this part feels. I lay there for a minute, staring at the sky I'd just fallen out of, and waited for someone to find me. It didn't take long. Voices German, barking sharp. Uniforms appeared at the edge of the field, gray, rifles at the ready. One of them, older than the others, with a grizzled mustache, saw me and called out. "The Amerikaner Hand hoch." American, hands up. I raised them. He came closer, boots squishing in the soft ground, muzzle of his rifle steady. He looked at me, ankle bent at a bad angle, flight suit, chute bundled beside me, and snorted softly. "Kriegsgefangener," he said to the others. "Prisoner of war." They searched me, took my pistol, my pocket knife, the little photo of my folks I kept in my breast pocket. The older one hesitated over that, looked at it, then at me, then handed it back. "Family," he said, "gut." He tapped his own chest, where a locket hung, then stepped back and gestured with his rifle. "Aufstehen, Amerikaner." Get up. I gestured at my ankle and tried out the half-dozen German words I knew. "Kaputt," I said, wincing. He sighed, muttered something under his breath, probably about stupid kids falling out of the sky, and jerked his head at one of the younger soldiers. Together they lifted me, slung my arms over their shoulders, and half carried, half dragged me toward the road. They didn't shoot me. In that moment, that counted as a kind of mercy. I spent the rest of the war in a prison camp. Stalag Luft something or other. After a while, the numbers all blur. Barbed wire, guard towers, barracks that smelled of unwashed bodies and thin soup. We were lucky compared to some. It was an airmen's camp. The Germans knew we weren't much use to them dead. The Geneva Conventions still had a little weight left. We slept on straw, 3 to a bunk. We ate gray bread and watery stew. We traded cigarettes for favors and information. We listened to a smuggled radio that some genius had built out of scrap, the BBC crackling through in bits and pieces. We watched the front lines move closer. We knew from the air raids. At first, the distant boom of bombs was rare. Then it was every few nights. Then every night. Sometimes the walls shook. Guards changed. The older ones grew more withdrawn. The young ones got jumpier. One chilly morning in April 1945, they marched us out. Lager evacuieren, an officer shouted, evacuate the camp. We walked for days, limped in my case, my ankle never having quite healed right. The guards were as miserable as we were. Whatever plan they'd had fell apart in the usual German mud and Allied air superiority. Then one afternoon, with artillery grumbling in the distance and the columns strung out along a country road, the guards started, drifting away. One by one, in 2s and 3s, they slipped into the trees. Some dropped their rifles in the ditch. Others just slung them and walked faster until they were out of sight. Our column slowed, stopped. We stood there, a ragged line of scarecrows in tattered uniforms, looking at each other. Now what? Someone asked. We found out 10 minutes later when an American Jeep rolled up. A star on the hood, a kid at the wheel who looked about 17, helmet too big. He stopped, stared at us, eyes going wide. You boys Air Corps, he called. Used to be, somebody said. He laughed a little too loud, too bright. Well, he said, you're Army again for the next 5 minutes, then you're going home. Home. The word didn't feel real. It didn't feel real when they trucked us back to a rear area and gave us real food for the first time in months. Half of us threw up, the other half cried over the taste of hot coffee. It didn't feel real when I stood on a pier in England again, watching ships load wounded men, our wounded men, not theirs, for the trip back across the Atlantic. It didn't even feel real when the Statue of Liberty came into view, green and steady against a sky that looked different than the last time I'd seen it. It only started to feel real the day I walked up the front steps of our house in Chicago, my duffel heavier than I remembered, my limp more pronounced on the familiar concrete. My mother answered the door. For a moment she just stared at me, hand frozen on the knob. Her hair was grayer, the lines around her eyes deeper. Then she made a sound I'd never heard from her before, a sort of half sob, half laugh, and pulled me into the kitchen, talking too fast and not fast enough. My father came in from the back, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked at me, at the uniform, at the cane I was leaning on. You look like hell, he said. You taught me from the best, I shot back. He grunted, but there was pride in it. We didn't talk about the war much, at first. Partly because I didn't know how, partly because they didn't know what to ask. How was it? Covers a lot of ground, it doesn't have the legs to carry. I gave them pieces. It was cold, I said once, absently rubbing my knee. Colder than you'd think up there. Your breath freezes on your mask. Your hands stick to metal if you're stupid enough to grab it bare. Another time it was loud, not just the engines, the guns, the flak, the way the whole ship groaned when you took a hit, you feel it in your teeth. Sometimes it was a job. You get up, you go to work, you come home if you're lucky. The difference is other guys do their jobs in offices. We did ours at 20,000 feet. I didn't tell them, not right away, about Shorty, about the way his body came up in my friend's hands in pieces. I didn't tell them about the man who fell past our formation that first day, or about Harris, who we later heard had gotten out after me, but landed badly and spent 6 months in a hospital in England, learning how to walk again. I didn't tell them about the nights in the camp, when hunger gnawed so loud you couldn't hear your own thoughts, or about the smell of a fortress burning in a German forest. Some things took time to find words for. Some never did. Years went by. I married a girl from 3 streets over who'd written me letters in the camp, careful, rounded handwriting on thin paper, words that smelled like home even when I couldn't picture what home looked like anymore. We had kids, they grew, they asked their own questions. Dad, were you scared? Yes. Did you shoot down any planes? One or two, I said, 3 by the official tally, maybe 4. I stopped counting for real after Berlin. What's it like in a war? Loud, I said, and long, and over too fast. I worked in a machine shop. The sound of drills and presses and grinders was almost comforting. It was noise you could predict, noise that meant things were being made, not destroyed. Sometimes when a drill bit shrieked just wrong, I'd flinch. My co-workers pretended not to notice. A lot of them had their own flinches. One by one, the years took the edges off the memories. They never disappeared, they just settled, like sediment at the bottom of a glass. Most of the time, the water on top looked clear. Every once in a while, something shook the glass. A movie on TV, a news story about some new war in some place I'd never heard of, a kid setting off fireworks too close to the 4th of July. The first time my oldest boy sang Silent Night off-key at a school concert, I had to step outside the auditorium, stood there in the hallway, staring at the linoleum, breathing slow. Where'd you go? My wife asked when I came back. Just needed some air, I said. Because in my head, as the kids sang about sleep in heavenly peace, I was hearing the buzz of a generator in a German camp, the murmur of men trying not to hear the guards argue about whether they'd have to move us again. Time does what time does. One day I realized I hadn't thought about the ball turret in a month, then 2, then something else would bring it back, the curve of a glass dome on a museum aircraft, the way my granddaughter's marble rolled across the kitchen floor and hit the cabinet with a sound that echoed hollowly in my chest. My granddaughter. That's where this part of the story really ends. She was 10 when she came home from school with a flyer in her hand, eyes bright. Grandpa, we're doing World War II in class, she said. Ms. Rodriguez says if we know anyone who was there, we can ask them to come talk. Were you there? It threw me for a second. In my head, I was there. I was just in it, like everyone else, a small piece in a big, ugly machine. But to her, it was a chapter in a book. Dates, names, black and white pictures. Yeah, I said slowly, I was there. You were in the Air Force, right, she said. Mom said, in the planes. Army Air Forces, I corrected automatically. Old habits die hard. They didn't split M till after, but yeah, I was in the planes. She looked at me like I'd told her I'd been on the moon. Will you come, she asked, to school? Tell them, Ms. Rodriguez says it's important, 'cause pretty soon there won't be a lot of people left who remember. That landed in me somewhere deep and unexpected. Pretty soon there won't be a lot of people left who remember. I thought of the guys in that bomber group, the ones who made it, the ones who didn't, Harris in his hospital bed, Shorty in his steel sphere, the German kid who tried to bayonet me and then decided I was more trouble than I was worth to kill. All right, I said, I'll come. So I did. I stood in front of a room full of kids who'd never known a world without smartphones or satellites or a dozen channels of news telling them what was happening everywhere, all the time. I told them about a world where the only way you knew what was happening over there was if you were one of the dots on the map. I told them about waking up in the dark and not knowing if, by sunset, you'd be a name on a chalkboard in a briefing hut with a little cross next to it. I told them about what it felt like when a flak burst hit close enough that you smelled the explosives in your oxygen mask, about what it looked like when a bomber tumbled out of formation, on fire, and men fell out like broken dolls. I told them about Shorty. Not the gory part, not the way his body came up in pieces, just the important part. He was 5'3", from Brooklyn. He swore like it was a second language. He missed his ma's cooking so much he'd talk about her meatballs like they were holy writ. He was terrified, same as the rest of us. He went into that ball anyway, 21 times. He died doing his job. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then the questions started. Were you scared? Yes. How did you get in the plane, knowing you might not come back? I thought about that. Habit, I said finally. Responsibility, the guy next to you. You don't have to be not scared to do something. You just have to do it anyway. Do you regret it? One boy asked, fiddling with his pen. Going, I mean. I looked at him, at all of them. No, I said, I don't regret going. I regret that any of us had to, but if I had to choose again, same time, same war, same stakes, yeah, I'd go. They mulled that over. On the way out, my granddaughter slipped her hand into mine. Thank you, she said. For what? I asked. For going, she said, for telling them. That night, after the dishes were done and the TV was off, and the house had settled into that late evening hush, I went out on the porch. The sky over Chicago doesn't show a lot of stars anymore, too many lights, too much glow. But if you squint, you can see a few. I leaned on the railing, my bum ankle complaining, and looked up. Somewhere far beyond my sight, there are probably still aluminum bones of B-17s lying in forests and fields. In France, in Germany, in the North Sea, faded paint on torn metal, Lucky Lady, Memphis Belle, Mix Mistress. Somewhere under a farmhouse in Bavaria, a German kid's granddaughter is asking him what it was like when the sky roared and rained fire. Some of us made it, some didn't. People call us heroes sometimes. I've never been comfortable with that word. Heroes are clean, shiny, simple. We were kids, scared, angry, bored, brave when we had to be, stupid when we couldn't help it, lucky more often than we deserved. We did a job that needed doing. We held our hands on the guns even when they shook. We went up even when we knew the odds. If there's anything I want the kids in that classroom, and maybe you, to take from all of this, it's not that war makes heroes. It's that ordinary people are capable of more than they think in moments that ask for it. And that if you're ever sitting somewhere safe, listening to the quiet, you might spare half a thought for the ones who aren't there to enjoy it. My name is Michael O'Connor. I was a tail gunner once, a long time ago, staring down a long strip of sky with my hands frozen to a machine gun. These days I sit on a porch and watch my granddaughter do her homework. Between those two things, a lot of noise happened. The important part is that the noise stopped. And the world kept turning. A few months after that school visit, my granddaughter asked me something that caught me off guard. Grandpa, she said, leaning on the kitchen counter, have you ever been inside a B-17 since then? I thought about it. I'd seen them in pictures, of course, the war movies, the documentaries. Once, long ago, I'd even seen one fly over a parade, its engines a softer echo of what I remembered. But I'd never actually gone back inside one, not since the day I stepped out of Mix Mistress and watched her limp away to the maintenance hangar, not knowing it was the last time we'd fly together. No, I said, can't say I have. Her eyes lit up in that way that meant she already had a plan. There's a museum like an hour from here, she said quickly. They've got one, an actual flying fortress. Ms. Rodriguez told me about it. We could go, if you want to. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to leave it where it was, in memory, in black and white, in the kind of hazy distance that keeps certain things from cutting too deep. Another part of me, the same part that had signed on the line at 18, that had climbed into the tail the first time with shaking hands, nudged me in the ribs. An hour, I said. Think they'll let an old tail gunner cut the line. She grinned. I'll bet they will. We went on a Saturday. The museum was in an old hangar out on what used to be an Air Corps field. The parking lot was half full families, old men in caps, kids racing each other to the door. Inside, the air smelled like dust and oil and something faintly sweet, old paint maybe. Planes hung from the ceiling like big, sleeping birds. A P-51 here, shiny and sleek. A stubby P-47 over there, a trainer I vaguely remembered cursing at in Texas. But she pulled me past all that. Over here, she said, practically buzzing, come on. And there it was. B-17G, olive drab, faded star and bar on the fuselage, nose art, sweet Lorraine, facing us in a chipped, smiling pin-up girl. For a second, the years fell away like someone had flipped a switch. The hangar around us dimmed. The people blurred. I saw instead a damp English dawn, ground crew moving like shadows, breath steaming in the cold. Grandpa, she said softly. I blinked. I'm okay, I said, just saying hello. A rope line kept most folks a few feet back while they shuffled along, reading the little plaques. But there was a docent standing off to the side, a man in his 60s, volunteer badge on his vest, watching me with a curious expression. You serve, sir, he asked, stepping closer. 8th Air Force, I said. B-17s, 1943-44. I jerked my chin at the Lorraine. Girl like that got me through 28 missions before Jerry finally punched my ticket. His eyebrows went up. Well, I'll be damned, he said, then glanced at my granddaughter. Pardon my French, miss. She giggled. We do restoration tour for vets, he went on. If you're up for a few steps, I can get you closer than that rope. My granddaughter's hand tightened on my arm. Please, she whispered. Yeah, I said, throat a little tight. Yeah, all right. He unhooked a section of rope, waved us through. Up close, the Lorraine's skin was rougher than I remembered. Rivets, little patches where time and weather had been chased back with fresh aluminum. The paint was more tired, the green not as deep. But the smell. When he cracked the hatch and helped me up the little set of stairs, that smell hit me full in the face. Oil, old canvas, metal that had held heat once and now just remembered it. It wasn't exactly the same as it had been at Molesworth or Thorpe Abbott's, but it was close enough that my knees went weak. You okay, sir? The docent asked quietly. I'm fine, I lied, just forgot my sea legs. My granddaughter went in ahead of me, ducking automatically at the low ceiling. I followed slower, one hand on the rail, the other on my cane. Inside, the light was dim, filtered through tiny windows and the open hatchway. The docent moved us forward a bit, keeping us mostly in the waist area. We can't let you go all the way to the back, he said apologetically. They've got the tail braced and the ball turret restored, but not reinforced for visitors, safety regs and all. That's all right, I said. I know the way from here in my head. I reached out and touched the side of the fuselage. Fingers brushed cold metal. In my mind, it was vibrating, alive with the hum of 4 right cyclones. The floor shook with the beat of props biting air. The air was thin and sharp, laced with the oxygen mask musk of rubber and breath and fear. You want to sit? My granddaughter asked. Yeah, I said. There was a little fold-down seat at the waist window, just like the one I'd used 100 times to rest between passes, muscles locking from crouching too long in the tail. I eased myself onto it. The doc leaned against the opposite wall, hands folded, giving me space. For a moment, nobody said anything. Kids outside the plane jabbered. Somewhere, a loudspeaker crackled with a cantor. A baby cried. Normal sounds, safe sounds. Looks smaller than I imagined, my granddaughter said finally, fingers tracing the edge of the waist gun mount. In the pictures, it looks big. Funny thing about these birds, I said. Outside, they're huge. Inside, when you're wearing all your gear and your chute and your helmet, and you've got 10 men trying not to trip over each other, they get real small real fast. She nodded. Did you like it? She asked. Flying, I mean, before the war part. I thought about that. Yeah, I said, I did still do, if I'm honest. There's nothing quite like lifting off and watching the world drop away. For a while up there, it feels like maybe gravity forgot your name. She smiled at that. And the rest of it, she said quietly. The rest of it, I looked out through the waist window, at the hangar beyond. The rest of it was the bill that came due. The docent cleared his throat gently. If you don't mind my asking, he said, what position did you fly, sir? Tail, I said, sat all the way back there, watching where we'd been and wondering if we'd see it again. He let out a low whistle. Rough spot, he said. Had its perks, I said, nobody behind you to surprise you. My granddaughter chewed her lip. Did you ever think about just not going, she asked, like in the morning just saying no. Every morning, I said, without hesitation. She blinked. But you went, she said. Yeah, I said, because the guy next to me was going, and the one next to him, and because there were people back home who didn't have to wake up to flak and fighters, and I liked the idea of keeping it that way. She nodded slowly. Were the Germans really bad, she asked, like all of them? Some of them were, I said, the ones giving the orders, the ones who decided certain people didn't deserve to live, the ones who thought the world was theirs to take. And the others, she pressed. Most of the others were just kids, I said, like us, scared, doing what they'd been told was right. I shot at their planes, they shot at mine. Up there, you don't have a lot of time to think about the why, just the what. She played with the strap of an old oxygen mask hanging from a hook, eyes thoughtful. Do you hate them? She asked. I thought about that longer than she probably expected. No, I said finally, not anymore. I did some days when I saw friends not come back, but hate's heavy, hard to carry for 80-odd years. At some point you put it down or it crushes you. She looked up at me. So what do you feel when you think about them? Sad, I said. For us, for them, for the ones who didn't make it out of those camps we were bombing the rail lines to. Mostly I just hope we were worth what it cost, that the world we built after was better than the one we burned down. We sat with that for a while. Out on the tarmac beyond the hangar doors, a jet took off from the modern airport a few miles away. Its engine roar rolled in a second later, different from a radial's, but close enough that my hand tightened on the seat for a heartbeat. You all right, sir? The docent asked softly. Yeah, I said, exhaling, muscle memory. My granddaughter slipped her hand into mine. Thank you, she said. For bringing you here, I asked. For everything, she said, the way only a kid can say something that big and not sound ridiculous. I squeezed her fingers. You make sure your kids know the story one day, I said. Not just mine, all of them. The men in these birds, the fellas in the foxholes, the sailors on those ships, the ones on the other side, too. Someone should remember we were all people, not just names in a book. I will, she said. The docent helped me back down the steps and off the plane. I turned at the bottom, put a hand on the fuselage one last time. See you, sweetheart, I murmured to the Lorraine, and to another brunette in a green dress with a name only a handful of men would remember now. On the ride home, my granddaughter dozed in the passenger seat, head bumping gently against the window with each turn. The sun was low, painting the highway in gold. I drove, hands steady on the wheel, the hum of the car a tame, friendly vibration. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror, lined face, white hair, eyes that had seen too much sky and not enough peace maybe in their prime. I thought of the kid I'd been, the one who'd walked into the recruiting office because of a poster and a feeling, the one who'd grinned too wide in his first crew photo, not yet knowing what it meant to lose someone. If there's anything tying that boy and this old man together, it's this. We were both scared. We both went forward anyway. When we got back to the house, my granddaughter stretched, yawned, and grabbed her backpack. I'm gonna write about today, she announced. For extra credit, Ms. Rodriguez will love it. Make sure you spell O'Connor right, I said. She rolled her eyes. I know how to spell my own last name, Grandpa. She darted inside, the screen door slamming behind her. I stood there for a second on the walk, listening to the normal house noises, the TV someone had left on low, the dog's claws clicking on the kitchen tile, the rustle of pages as she dug for a notebook. I looked up. No flak, no contrails, just a blue sky with a few lazy clouds and a sun sliding toward the trees. The noise we made back then, the engines, the guns, the bombs, the shouting, it was enormous. It filled the world. But it ended. The quiet that came after is what matters. The ordinary sounds, a grandkid's laughter, a dog snoring, the scrape of a chair on a porch as an old man sits down to watch the light change. That's what all that noise was buying. Not glory, not parades, not medals in velvet boxes. My name is Michael O'Connor. I was a tail gunner once in a war a long time ago. These days I'm just an old man on a porch, grateful for quiet skis and the chance to tell a story or two before it's someone else's turn to remember. And that's the end of it.